Welcome to TNT, baby, the naked truth with Taylor Armstrong, where I'm going to expose everything about my life, and my guests are going to come on, get naked with me, and bear it all. Now let's get naked. This is an exciting day. We all met at Biohack Your Beauty. I'm so happy to have you here today, Dr. Kate and Maribel Trevino. Yes, these are experts in biohacking your beauty and breast health and so many awesome topics for women. And thank you for introducing me to them, Gemma.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have Dr. Kate on. She invented this supplement for women that have implants, and I'm really excited to get the information on that because I feel like it's critical with all the things that have come out in the news about implants, implant sickness. I know I've had some friends that have had them removed because they felt like they had like autoimmune issues, things like that. So can you tell me about your implant?
Yes, absolutely. So this formula was really built through my journey with breast implant illness, which started in 2012. So for me, it's over 10 years of chronic illness. And at the time, no one knew about breast implant illness.
Oh my gosh.
Well, actually, we knew because the 90s, everything that happened, but it really got swept under the rug. So the emergence of all the changes started around the time when I was sick. And I was actually in medical school looking for answers as to why I was having health problems.
Wow. So this is like a personal journey that led to this.
What were your symptoms? How would you even?
Yeah, so I was an athlete in high school and college. I did wrestling. I was an All-American in wrestling. And
Wow. That's
I-
really cool. Chick wrestling. I love it. That's awesome.
No, actually, I was the only girl on an all-boys team for the better part of my wrestling career.
Even more impressive.
Oh, wow.
But it's totally important
That's
to
a whole
mention.
nother, that's a whole
really
nother
good.
conversation we have to have. I
Well,
love this.
She was really good. So I just mention it because, you know, as women who work out and are athletes, like we're told a lot, maybe like your pain is in your head, maybe you're just overtraining. And I had already like surpassed the limits a person should train like early in life. So I knew what overtraining felt like. And after I got breast implants, about a year later, I started having really bad post-workout recovery, which then spiraled into body pain that would last for like weeks. And my doctors were like, you're just working out too hard. And I was like, no way. Like, I remember
There's something more to this.
No, yeah, like the training camp for nationals, that was like overtraining. I can do the difference in the feeling of the pain. It was a dysfunctional pain. So that was my first symptom.
But it wasn't breast pain.
No, it was systemic pain. Yeah. So breast implant illness is not really, there's no local problem typically. I mean, there's rare scenarios where people have mold inside of a saline implant, but even in that situation, it's not necessarily reacting like a local infection. It's more just kicking off histamine issues with the vagus nerve, which goes through the chest, stuff like that.
I had a crazy experience with the vagus nerve as well.
Do, right? Anyways.
I know, like seriously. No, like seriously. And that's the thing, like the vagus nerve is something people are talking about all the time.
Yeah.
As well now, which nobody talked about ever. Like I had an incident where I just didn't feel good at a restaurant, passed out. I swear I died. The ambulance had to come and they just chalked it up to, it was a vagal nerve episode. And so it was like crazy. And they're like, well, what causes it? Nobody knows.
Yeah.
So you actually had that? So you had issues with that?
Not me with the vagus nerve.
Right, yeah.
Not like that particular issue. No, I was just saying that she was asking me if like a breast implant illness has to do with the chest. And I was saying
it could be anything.
Breast implant illness is a systemic illness. So there's a variety of things that happen, but
so does it come across as like an undiagnosed autoimmune issue?
Yeah, autoimmune disease can be like one of the causes of breast implant illness. So for some people, when you put a foreign device inside of your body, your immune system will start to go haywire and attack your tissue. That is actually only one of the ways breast implants can cause illness, and it doesn't happen with everyone who's sick. I personally, I don't have any autoimmune disease, but there's other ways. And we could talk about why it's important for our bodies to create a really balanced scar tissue capsule around the breast implant. So when we make a nice scar tissue capsule, which really you need a healthy, properly functioning body to create that nice balanced capsule. You might have heard of like a hard capsule, like the contracture. That's always the fear and it's the aesthetic outcome. That's also caused by the same issue of collagen derangement problems. But just like you can have a thick capsule, you can also have too thin of a capsule. And when the capsule tissue is too thin, your immune system can get inside the implant easily and pull off tiny pieces of microsilicone all the time. And then that microsilicone goes into the body and it has chemicals attached to it and heavy metals, and it starts to become basically a toxicity burden.
So how long after you got the implants did you start feeling the systemic effects?
It was about 9 months after, but I never put it together as being
Right.
related to breast implants. It took me many, many years to understand that relationship. Yeah.
That's wild.
It's about how
And-
did you come to the final conclusion?
It's kind of a long story,
When you
but
removed them, right?
well, so when I was in my 3rd year of chiropractic school, I was at an immunology seminar. So actually they were talking about autoimmunity, which is what you just brought up. And I had thought about autoimmune disease already, and I'd looked for it. I couldn't find it. And then the doctor put a study up on the slide that said women with fibromyalgia who had silicone. And in my head, I was like, wait a minute, fibromyalgia, like that's not scleroderma or rheumatoid arthritis or, you know, any of the collection of joint autoimmune. Fibromyalgia is like a general, we don't know what it means, pain. And I said, why did they call it fibromyalgia? And then I started thinking, wait a minute. So there's women who have pain syndromes that don't have autoimmune diseases that have breast implants. And there's already, so I started like all these light bulbs were going off. And then I started thinking about breast implants again. And then I circled back and did more research. And then I immediately found like a community, which was really small at the time. It's now really big, of women who were explanting. And then I started getting deep dive into all the old data, because there's a lot of old safety data from the 90s. And it's when you study the natural history of silicone safety legislation and approval with the FDA, it reads like a crazy soap opera. Like you're just shocked that there's no safety data to date, really.
That's wild. That's
Yeah,
like a lot of things.
Yeah.
So what about saline?
Yeah. So during the ban on silicone filled implants, so they weren't really banned. It's kind of interesting because they were still allowed to be used if women had cancer removal surgeries, which is kind of funny now. Like, oh, we had a safety issue and removed them from the market, but if you had cancer, you can still get them.
Which
This is
seems
how we
very
used to
odd.
think.
Very
That seems like an
counterintuitive.
interesting way of thinking.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
This is like, you know, in the 90s, this is
Yeah.
what we were thinking.
Back
where
in the
we are
90s.
now. Yeah, so saline is I think a better option. Like the older saline, there's less issues, but the newer saline is very much similar because it has an outer shell that's the same new silicone, which is like a more toxic, more cohesive silicone. So
I have had a few friends who've had their implants removed. One of my friends has Lyme's disease,
Mhm.
and that was something that they recommended. And how would those two go together?
yeah, so Lyme is one of those things that really sets people up for failure with breast implants because it really inhibits their ability to make good collagen around the implant. So Lyme is causing a lot of histamine, excess histamine, and it kind of relates to how the formula supports the body. Histamine, which can be kicked off for anyone for a variety of reasons. It could be like chronic allergies. It could be you have a low-grade toxic burden. It could like a mercury amalgam that's leaching mercury into the bloodstream every day when you drink hot liquid or chew gum. It could be you have some sort of underlying chronic infection, which could be a gut infection like SIBO, or it could be a cavitation in the jaw. It could, you know, there's a lot of different like places where infections can kind of, you know, persist. So anytime these things are happening, your body is kicking off little bits of histamine every day. And that actually deranges your collagen over time. So you see people who have what we call mast cell syndrome, which would be an extreme version of that, that get what we call, it's like there's a genetic association, but there's also this hypermobility that happens where our tissue becomes stretchy, we are flexy. So that is like the picture of histamine deranging collagen. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that's totally interesting to me.
What do you mean
Especially
by
with the collagen.
flexy? Because I think flexibility is a good thing, but you don't mean that in a positive way.
No, we don't want to be like excessively flexible because that's when, you know, our joints become unstable. Our tissue is not as stable. And then once your tissue becomes unstable, especially like the surface tissue, because a lot of the mast cells lay right beneath the skin, then it starts to be like a chicken and egg thing, because when the skin is more stretchy, the mast cells are more primed. So they're just ready to kick off histamine, you know, and like talking about priming with our hormones and cells is like another conversation, but our body very much works on priming.
Mm-hmm.
You think about like an activity that produces dopamine, right? When you get excited, just thinking about the activity, the dopamine starts coming, right? Like an addiction.
That's interesting.
Same thing with histamine and mast cells and priming and allergens. Like, oh, I know that building has mold in it. And before I even go in, I start kicking off like my histamine mold symptoms, right? That's an example.
Wow.
Yeah, we're organisms.
That's interesting.
And is it something that just comes out of the blue? Like you got your breast implants and then 9 months later you started feeling the symptomatology, or was it Like, so no
Yeah.
wonder you can't correlate the two. So
Yeah, I think that like for a lot of people who make a shift into chronic illness from basically regular health, it often feels like if I hadn't done that one thing, I would have been okay, when really that one thing was what we call a tipping point event, and they were already set up and ready. And if it didn't happen then, for me, maybe it would have happened 10 years later under a different circumstance.
That's
It
what I
might
was
have
going to
taken
say.
longer. Yeah.
Like, can you have like implants and say 7 years later you start having, like, can it happen just at
To
any
anybody,
time?
I mean,
Anytime?
Yeah, our
after
bodies
that?
are all different, I'm assuming, right? So everybody reacts differently. I mean, it's still a foreign object in your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
So I would say like what I see more commonly is people when they switch their set of implants, like maybe they had a good course on the first round, they got them when they were really young, and then they switch their set. And maybe like they're older now, they've had kids, they have different hormones, they have more exposures.
Your body's
Now
different.
you have another surgery where typically they're just removing that implant and they leave that scar tissue capsule behind. So they just open it up inside of your chest pocket and whatever.
replace it.
Yeah. And then whatever, like they're not removing that capsule. They're just, this is the typical way that you do it. And I understand why, you know, there's safety and risks around removing the capsule completely too. And I've had this conversation with surgeons and I get it. I understand where they're coming from, but that's the way they usually do it. So that's almost like Pandora's box, right? The tissue is, the capsule is holding like everything inside of that implant. Let's assume it's healthy, good scar tissue. And then you just open it inside. It's like Pandora's box. So whatever it was holding is now mobilized all at once. And then you put a new implant in the body, and then your body has to go through that process again of making new scar tissue around it, which, by the way, silicone support formula really helps with that process. And the body is older potentially. It's been through more. It has more challenges. So then how good is that scar tissue capsule that you make? What about all the stuff you just mobilized? What about your organs? What's going on there? What happens if you got liposuction at the same time because you had a mommy makeover and now you have scar tissue compressing your lymphatic system? So like these are all considerations.
That's a serious problem.
Yeah.
Okay. I had that.
you did?
Well, I had a tummy tuck.
Oh.
Yeah, that was like nightmare. My kid's nightmare. But then they have like lymphatic massage, like all these things, because you develop like scar tissue in places
And
that you
honestly,
didn't
limb
know.
massages, I mean,
Yeah.
we love them.
It's
I
the
mean,
way to go.
Even post-surgery, after surgery, if you've never had surgery, limb massages are really amazing.
Vital. Yeah, they're vital
for the body because we eat so much sodium, stuff that we breathe just in general. It just helps detoxify the body. And it's really an antioxidant. It's like, we love it.
You have to do it. That and sauna.
Yeah.
Sauna, yes.
It's all about the
The
sauna.
infrared.
Okay, so
The
tell me about
infrared,
this.
yes.
So your support system, you designed this yourself with everything, and I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, there really is no product on the market like silicone support formula. It's the first of its kind, which is good in a way, but it's also, you know, in business, it's challenging to prove a market, especially when safety around this issue just changed like in 2021, right? So prior to 2021, any surgeon would say that women who talked about BII were crazy until the FDA got their back. And usually we're critical of, I mean, I'm a holistic doctor, so I'm used to being critical of the FDA, but in this case, I'm like, thank you, FDA, right? Like they're making surgeons disclose this information now. If you were to go get implants today, you'd have to sign a form saying that you acknowledge that breast implants cause cancer, systemic illness, and so.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, things have changed so much over the years. Like, I just like that we're actually addressing all of these things because it all seems like something that seems really basic. I mean, when you're growing up, I mean, most girls are getting implants at an early age and followed by all of the things, like all of the fillers and everything. And I think like there has to be a way outside of that that's not so damaging to the body or the immune system to still feel younger and look younger without all of the side effects, because almost everybody I've known that's ever had anything has had side effects.
Yes, and regardless of any surgery, it's not even the surgery itself. You get out of surgery and you feel like everything went well. The doctor would tell, but it's post-surgery, and it's like you said, years later that things can, you know, be different. So ideally, even like Kate was saying, Dr. Kate, she was saying about taking this, people with breast implants that have no chronic issues should also be taking this to prevent that. Because, you know, again, things can arise in later future.
Totally, like as we change. Although we don't like prevent issues with supplements, but we support the body. So.
Exactly.
We all need some immune support.
It doesn't.
I definitely
so the
do.
formula actually, like, so what it does is it supports your systemic collagen. So it's not just helping with, like, people who take it tell me that they look tighter within 7 days. their whole body.
Wow.
What?
I know.
Oh my gosh,
It's
I'll
not-
take a case.
Okay, here,
It's
let's
not-
open the
it's
box
not
now.
like-
Let's get it done.
It's not a claim I can make, and it's also
Right.
not going to be everyone. But
Right.
if you have issues with histamine deranging your collagen, what we're really doing is we're stabilizing the mast cell. That's like what a whole sleeve of the formula does, which is going to really like support the gut, where we have a lot of like bloating and histamine related gut issues in people. So that's how it makes people tighter. So certain people will get tighter from it. It's balancing the immune system, and it's also helping the body remove chemicals that act like estrogen, and it's helping support
that's
methylation.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Especially as you get older and your
Mhm.
hormones start going all out of whack.
Yeah, and with for people that don't know, if you could explain a little bit more clearly, like just mast cells in general, that there are helpers and they're good and bad, right?
Yeah, mast cells. So like they're primarily like under the skin, and that's why like when we get an allergic reaction, we can get like red. Or like when I get nervous, like I'm probably red right now because anytime I get nervous or emotional, my mast cells like release histamine. And some of the ingredients in silicone support formula, I super dose myself because I'm not like a normal healthy. I'm doing a more tailored approach for myself. But anyways, you can't super dose like a mass product. You can't give people a super dose of something that. Anyways, we're
Not even
raised
vitamin
so-
C.
Yeah.
Legally,
Well, just
you
saying
can't-
your
Right.
like your mast cells are there to
Mhm.
be a defense for you, but then if they're hyperactive, then that's when you start getting crazy reactions.
Yeah, and histamine can be like really helpful in brain function. Like it's an excitatory neurotransmitter, so it can really help us think fast when we're in danger. So,
Like
but
a
I think
fight or
that
flight.
what fight or flight,
Fight or flight,
and yeah, like so it's delicate, and there's like relationships between the way these hormones work together. But when you start to be in like a chronic disease state or in a state where you're having too much of these things secreting on a daily basis and it's dysfunctional, and then you're relying on like that adrenaline histamine complex to function, and then you're wearing out your adrenals and you're getting more run down, you're aging. You don't want that either. So.
And the big thing is not aging.
Yeah, that's a big one, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Anti-aging.
Anti-aging. That's right. That's why when we met at Biohack Your Beauty, you had
Right.
all these different new age technologies that are
The new age.
like helping us. It feels like new age to the rest
Right.
of us,
It
to you
feels-
guys, because you're in it all the time. But
Right.
just these doctors, like even the holistic dentist. Like I was so interested in everything he had to say about removing crowns and fillings, and how it has such an overall
They were
effect on your
fabulous.
body. They were really interesting, and that was something I wasn't familiar with. Like
I
holistic dentistry.
Absolutely loved Biohack Your Beauty. I think it's going to be the biggest conference going over the next 5 years, every year, because it was just so many people on the same page where everybody there was genuinely like, have you heard about this? Did you look at this study? Did you see how this came together? Addressing issues of things that like I had seen online or read articles about, or everything. It was just like kind of confirming this direction in which we're going for not only just looking better, but actually feeling better. Because you can look young and be very sick. You can look very healthy and not be healthy.
100%.
So I think it's a lot of it is really just bringing all of these different modalities together and actually understanding what they are. Like there was so much new stuff and information there that it was like overwhelming, but totally exciting. Like, I mean, you just want to study it because like for me I'm 48. So like at this age, I'm kind of like more concerned about how I feel than how I look actually. And I'm like, I just want to feel healthy.
good.
Yeah. You don't want to like, okay, your knees start crackling. Some things are happening. I'm
Well,
like,
also like if you have a surgery, it's like you don't heal so quickly. It's more time to heal. So
mhm,
now they have like hyperbarics and things that you
Right.
could do
all the
to
things.
expedite, healing like from the inside out and things like that. So that's why, now that the new technology is the non-invasive, the more, biohacking, the better stuff that there is. Before it was just like, you need to do this, you need to take these pills. Now it's like, I don't have to take the pills. I can
Yeah.
do this to expedite my healing, because what do ancient people used to do back in the day?
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And they
Think about
were
it.
modifying their
Yes.
bodies.
I
They
mean,
were
yes.
modifying their bodies all
Yes.
throughout history.
Since the
Yeah.
beginning of time in
Yes,
different
And they
ways.
lived
Yes.
like
Yeah.
500 years. Now
Yeah.
we're lucky we live 100, right?
Right.
Yeah.
well,
I mean, let's be
Right.
honest.
But it's
Well,
really,
honest.
I feel like with biohacking, it's holistic meets pharmaceutical aesthetics, and trying to figure out what that marriage is that we all need to understand. So we know what direction, what do you think are the most powerful things that you took away from the Biohack conference?
Just a connection between the holistic and the beauty aspect, and also, of course, the plastic surgeons.
Mm-hmm.
What they do, and just in general, like the non-invasive stuff that are out there for us, that it's so easy for us, like you said, to go to the dentist and be like, we need this done. But there's a holistic dentist. How many people did not know that there was a holistic
And
dentist?
Maribel, what about the glutathione? Because you
Oh my
discovered
God.
that at
Well,
the event. Can you
glutathione
talk
is
about that
all
product?
I mean, that's one of the things I'm obsessed with, glutathione, and just the fact that Dr. Patel was there.
what
I
He was
love
amazing.
him.
Yes,
He was great.
He's like one of my
amazing. I
favorite.
was like in awe of him. Like just the way that he spoke about glutathione. I've been doing a glutathione forever, and
In an IV, she's been doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
correct.
We've been going too
Yes,
to the
we have.
hydration
Right.
room. for
And
our
she was trying to, you
glutathione.
got to do the spray, there's this something in the spray, it's more potent, it goes in through the pores, like it's, and I was like, I don't know. And I was just like, how is it that a spray and something that goes in IV? But no, now my husband is like obsessed with it. Like we can't get enough bottles in our house. So like we use it morning, day, afternoon, and it's changed.
And do you spray it on the bottom of your feet, or where do you put it?
In my
Anywhere?
stomach, like on the stomach area,
Yeah.
because it absorbs to the body
Faster.
and just up faster.
Yeah.
And I mean, the benefits of it are my skin feels better. I feel more energetic. I'm less bloated. She knows, I would call her all the time. I'm bloated. Why do I feel this way? I didn't eat sodium. And now this glutathione I'm telling you guys, it's a life changer.
It's life-changing.
And the whole skincare.
Well, he has a patent on
Yes.
antioxidant delivery, so they've put it in vitamin C and like other types of antioxidants. So it can raise the level in the blood cell in 15 minutes.
Right.
Like we don't see that with IV administration.
Right.
It doesn't because
And it
it's
wears out quickly, right? Like you end up peeing it out. Like
well,
if you get
with
too much.
glutathione, so it's just this is interesting to me. And we're talking about Biohack Your Beauty. It's like if you're a med spa and you're doing IV therapy, and like they want to, right? And like their licensing allows
Which is a
them.
lot of them are doing that.
But like
Yeah.
they're not going to learn about a skin delivery mechanism of glutathione, which is typically found more in like medical integrative clinics. And like he's going to biohacking conferences. He's not going, well, now he's starting to, and he's doing the Emmys, and like their company is amazing. But and like the Oscars, they go everywhere now. But it's interesting because like the med spas are like, oh, I want to learn how to incorporate stem cells. Like we don't know how to do that. Like we know how to use Botox and filler, but like how do we start to like look at the liver? Like how do we know if people, right? So that was the point of bringing everyone together.
Definitely
love it.
glutathione has become at the forefront, but has it been around forever and people are just now realizing that
No.
it's
In
so
China.
available? Or?
It hasn't.
in
no.
Korea and China, because I think
In
there was
Asian
a lot of
countries.
people were doing it. I think it was like lightening the skin or
Yes,
something.
Oh, right,
exactly.
okay.
So that's what it was used for. And I know because there's a lot of areas that do carry it, and before we really got into it in other med spas, but now it's huge because it is an antioxidant. So it does help, to clean out the body, because our bodies are always full of.
There's a lot of different benefits. I
Yes.
know that I used to manage a cosmetic surgery
Okay.
center. And so we had a very high, big Chinese clientele.
Right.
And so they would come in for mass doses of glutathione. And it was mainly to lighten the skin, which is like crazy, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, there's so many other benefits to it, but they were mainly coming for that, which I thought was interesting, but it's been really big in Asian countries for
And is there
decades.
a potential for toxicity, like too much glutathione, or is it just all good?
No.
She's like, no.
No,
that's
there isn't.
There's
actually-
too much.
that's
I know.
really-
You're,
I
like,
get
you're,
blood
you
work
are
every
the
day.
poster child for glutathione.
yes, you can definitely take too much, because what happens is it does a lot of functions. It's also like really, it's a chelator, and it chelates to toxins. So you can really you can Herxheimer hard if you take too much without supporting your detox pathways. But I will say, just to circle back on the spray and why we love it, is in the IV, you don't raise the levels right away. All you do is give the raw material. Your body has to break it down into amino acids and then reconstitute it back as glutathione. And that requires an enzyme. And if you're over 30, you have less of that enzyme. If you have genetic mutations on that enzyme, you have less of that enzyme. If you're under a lot of stress, all your enzymes are downregulated anyway, right? Your epigenetic switches are flipping. So you may or may not even raise your glutathione level. Now, the people who get benefit from it, they're converting, but it takes longer. It's just, if you flood your body with raw material, you will eventually. But if you use the spray, you raise your RBC level in 15 minutes. It literally raises.
Really?
Yes.
Just
And
so
they have
the
clinical
delivery
has the
studies.
spray.
You're going to get it.
We
Don't
need
worry.
the spray.
We're
Yeah.
gonna know. We're going to send you
We'll
guys
put a
everything.
link where we have,
Yeah, definitely.
gosh,
Let's put a
that
link for
sounds amazing.
everyone.
That'll be the
Because the
sponsor of the
spray,
next.
I don't necessarily have time to go sit for an hour
Well, no,
IV
that's
all
the
the time.
problem.
And
It's
so
like-
the
That's another
spray,
thing.
you can
That's
do it all
another
day, like
thing.
you said.
That's
Yeah.
another thing.
I mean, I could just sit here and spray myself while we talk.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I do it all
Yeah.
the time. Like we go for the IVs, but I'm always like, I don't even know if it's doing anything. So I like love
It might
this.
not be.
Yeah,
That's
it
why.
might actually not be
But
doing
you're right.
anything.
I was just kidding. There
Yeah.
is,
A little bit.
you could overdose on
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
just
don't
like,
go too
it's
crazy.
just like my son. If I give him a soda, like it's a treat. But if I give him too much soda, it's not good, right? It's
Right.
a treat.
Right.
But glutathione is also, I get blood work. I mean, I used to do B complex all the time. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden I get my blood work and my doctor's like, oh, too high on vitamin
Really?
D.
Really?
Yes, too high. I'm like, you got to slow down. I'm like, wait a second. I thought there was no, that's when I learned that there is, that you could overdose in certain things. If you know.
But also in a lot of, we don't know what form you were getting in the IV. I mean, I don't know where you're going, but you know, the right form of B12 matters because sometimes our body doesn't have the enzymes to convert it into the form that needs the active form. So then you ramp up one form in the blood and not the other. It's not doing anything.
Well, she said B12. I was high on B12.
Right, but what form of B12? Right. What test did they do? I don't know.
It's just interesting because I think it's like anything else, like marketing or social media or anything, right? There's like, you can do it, but you don't know if it's actually being done right. There is an actual correct way to do everything, including get IVs, take supplements, like all these things, right? But we don't have like all that education. You're usually like watching a video and then you don't know who's putting that video out or how it's happening. So you do need somebody like Dr. Kate that you can call and be like, is this correct?
No, well, yes. Yes, I know everything. No, I don't. That's why we made Biohack Your Beauty. So we're bringing together like all the experts and like it's always changing, right? And like I've really moved away from being an expert and I am really a complex chronic illness expert, but I'm really moving into like new spaces that are around community and spirituality and like understanding like our emotional relationship to beauty biohacking. But that's why we're bringing in these experts because they're in the field, they're staying current on the research, they're there to provide the information. And also we're just getting exposed to like someone else's field and brain. And then that's opening things. People really don't give that enough weight.
That's really interesting what you just said about like your mental connection, right, to all of these things, because I think that that's really where it all starts. So how you feel about yourself, how you like, I mean, what makes you want to go and get breast implants, right? And being at peace with yourself, whether you have implants or you don't have implants, how you feel about things. I do feel like when they do all these studies in the blue zones where it's like the biggest thing that they all have in common is community and being respected by their peers and elders and like all these things. And I feel like even if you're eating healthy and you're doing everything you can, there is a huge society emotional component that has to be fulfilled for people. So, I mean, to live longer. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think you were talking earlier prior to starting about when you focus on one part of your body that you're not happy with, that you said that there's some ramifications emotionally.
Yeah. So thinking about a part of your body where you harbor a pattern of chronic insecurity, which means like I might really dislike X about myself. So it's something that maybe it starts out as me projecting negativity towards that area on a daily basis. And then it might move into me just completely separating myself from that area, like down-regulating it from my consciousness so that then inadvertently, like there's less blood flow, there's less nerve innervation, there's just less neural innervation to that area. Like, I don't know if you've ever worked out a muscle and you've been like, I really want to grow my glutes or my legs. And then you're just thinking about it all the time. And then you go in the gym and like you're creating a really strong pathway between your brain and that part of your body. And we see the same thing in PT when you injure an area and it's hard to access it and you have to push. Okay, so all that says is that when you introduce something exogenous that could be painful or it could be nice feeling, it could be a massage, it could be lymph technique, it could be like a fascia working, it could be a laser, it could be an injection, it could be a surgery. But it's an opportunity for me to now use that part of my brain to go back to that area where I felt insecurity, feel it, reintegrate it as myself. And then through that process, I'm now actually becoming a more expanded version of myself in my field. So I'm actually taking from my creativity and I have the intention of rewiring an area, reintegrating an area. And now I become more authentic, which is a very different way of looking at it when we say, oh, surgery, augmenting, you're fake, you're the opposite of authentic. Really? Well, am I? I mean, what do you think, Maribel?
Because really that's a really interesting concept.
She brings up a good point. I had eye surgery, and my recovery has been. I tend to recover very slow. Okay, I'm a slow recoverer.
Me too.
And for eye surgery, it's hard because you want your eyes. Yeah. Your eyes. And so I called her and I remembered telling her, like, I can't, I'm going crazy. Like, I don't see, I'm reading about it. I see people within a month, within 2 months, I just feel like I'm going on my.
You're still struggling.
Yes, basically. Yeah. So she's like, listen, why don't you remove that, like that feeling that you feel about your eyes so much and let it go. Just let the healing do its work and remove it so much from being like the first part of like what you think of every morning when you wake up,
Mhm.
and let it go.
And then what did we replace it with?
And I replaced it with good energy, and I replaced it with knowing that I'm just going to let my body do its work.
The process.
And we talked about how when you looked in the mirror
Mhm.
and you were saying every day, instead of saying they're not healing, they're smaller and they're not what
Yeah.
I want, you're saying, no, they're open.
They're open.
They're bright.
Right.
The muscle is lifting. Okay. So she's giving energy. She's wiring
Right.
energy. It's the same thing because you were pushing hard on the lash growth peptide.
Right.
And I was like, stop it. Because you can't grow your lash
my
and
doctor.
heal your
Yeah.
eye. Like, what do you
Right.
want to focus on? How many
Yeah.
things do you want to do? I don't like it when people combine procedures. I get it with anesthesia that like
Right.
sometimes like just
Oh, right,
economically,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but like I take pause. I like our brains to be focused
Right.
and intentional, and one at a time is sort of like, I think, the best approach.
Which makes a lot of
100%.
sense.
But after I followed her instructions, and protocol,
Yeah.
it basically worked out for me. So now I'm starting to see recovery at a much faster pace, which I
Mm.
wasn't at all.
Well, and you know what's interesting, and this is a spiritual
Right.
thing, but there was a block because there was a peptide, which is TD fragment, which
Yes.
just rapidly speeds up healing. And for some reason, I didn't even think to tell her about it, which is weird. Why didn't it come to mind? But
I
as
have
soon
no
as you
idea.
started being open and having a different kind of mindset, it was almost like your field became open to new information that was going to help you. And then you started the TB frag and you just started healing like rapidly.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
insane. It's
It's
made.
wild.
I'm telling you, if I would have taken that TR and I would have listened to what she said, just mentally, I think my healing would have been much faster because it now I see the progress much faster
That's
that I
interesting.
didn't
is
see
very
in 2 months.
interesting.
I
And it's
love
just-
that.
I think that's with your intentions in general,
Mhm.
Yeah.
with your mental health as well. Just not
Absolutely.
focusing
Yes.
on the negative aspects of your life and
Exactly.
turning that mindset
Mindset
around.
into positive.
which
The
is-
mind is the most powerful thing that we
That's
have.
what my
It's-
dad, I
it-
grew up in a
yes.
household like that where my dad would be like, your brain is your
It's
computer to your life
Right.
and you need to learn how to control it.
But I
Right.
also,
Yeah.
I don't think, and we didn't get
True.
into it with Maribel's example, but I don't think that like ignoring the pain is either also like if I've downregulated energy and consciousness to an area where I have a chronic pattern of insecurity, it's not just about me having an impression that I look different than I look. There's almost always an emotional trauma related to this.
Absolutely.
So like if you start beauty biohacking that area and you augment it and you bring in your creativity and you have the intention to expand your authenticity into that part of yourself and reclaim it, you might have to deal with something painful related to that area because now you're going there. You can't
Mhm.
ignore it anymore. And what does that look like? Well, great. You should get excited about the opportunity to transform something in yourself that is going to go from a dark to a light.
I think it's crazy, everything you're saying, because it really makes sense to me. I think there's such a huge disconnect between your mind and your body, like each of us individually. I know when I was younger, I never really thought about my body. And then when I went through a hard time after my husband had passed away, I'd put on a bunch of weight and I realized that I never even really looked in the mirror. Like I didn't want to see myself. I didn't want to see that I had gained so much weight. I didn't like, it was like, I didn't even really, it was like washing my face was the only time I was like actually staring at myself or putting on makeup, right? And I think that teaching people that mind-body connection, like within themselves, is like, okay, like, hey, maybe you should like feel your thighs, like touch your
Right.
body, right? And be like, hey, do I want to change this? Do I feel better about this? Like, think about it. I mean, your relationship with yourself is really the most important relationship you can have, right?
Yeah. If you're not happy with yourself, you can never make anybody else happy. So.
No, it's in
But
being
happiness
confident.
comes in different forms. I really, we all get happy in certain ways. Like for me, I got breast implants when I was 21 years old.
Yeah.
I've always been a
So
small
did I.
girl. I've always been a small girl. And I just felt like I was like a negative A. And I was
Right.
like, let me go breast implants. So I got breast implants and, I didn't, I've had breast implants 3 times. One, you wait the 10 years and I felt like they weren't big enough. And so I went bigger and then I went bigger. And had I known everything that I know now about, biohacking and everything, I would have prevented, or I would have probably not done anything. you know?
Really?
I'm one of those lucky, I wouldn't say lucky, but blessed that I haven't had any chronic issues. But again, we don't know in the future,
Yeah, like
I
what's
mean,
gonna happen.
Dr. Kate's, Dr. Kate has, given me this, I've been
Mhm.
taking her
Supplement.
supplement for a while. And I feel like for those that don't have implants or are going through chronic, it's important that you take it as a preventative.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
we don't call it preventative, but thank you, Maribel.
Well, okay,
I love
well,
that. Support.
Yeah,
It's just like in this
Support.
country, like drugs,
To prevent.
only drugs are allowed to prevent illness in this country. That's the
Right.
way the rules are. But, there are a lot of ways that it really supports the body.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
I know. I feel like I want to take it
I know. I definitely want to
just in case.
I know,
Yeah.
that and the
I don't know if
glutathione
that's-
Well,
spray.
anyone who's exposed to, so I, if I could have taken Dr. Patel's glutathione and
Right.
put it in my formula, but I couldn't. But what I did do was I put all the substrates that create and recycle glutathione, understanding how important that pathway is.
That's amazing.
And that's, a lot of people are missing it because their gut, either they don't they're not ingesting the substrates or the raw materials, or they don't absorb them because they have gut issues. So that can be a challenge for people having good glutathione status.
There's so many nutrition issues in general, just with our diets. Even if you're eating whole organic foods, just because of the soil, it's not as nutrient and dense as they
Yes.
once were, like hundreds of years ago. And I remember my grandmother-in-law was a world-renowned nutritionist, and she used to tell me all this stuff like 25 years ago.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, the soil, we don't turn over the soil correctly. And I just think like a lot of people, they don't take a bunch of supplements because if they're not right, your body doesn't absorb them, all of that. Like, where do you stand on that? Like on the quality of supplements
Yeah.
and like knowing what you're taking.
So quality around supplements is a much bigger conversation.
You're like, that's another
But-
hour show.
But if you want to
we're happy to
discuss
have you back.
soil depletion, I'm going to go like minerals. It's probably the
Right.
biggest issue with soil depletion, and minerals are really, really important for us. Like in every function, every moment, it's like the controls that make the pumps of the cells, just so like our mitochondria function. And supplementing minerals, I feel like, is a great way to start for everyone. We're just really mineral depleted, and
That's interesting.
you can look at other nutrients and you can test. Obviously, and have a bio-individual approach, but
I think minerals are the one thing I don't take.
Yeah, most people see like the biggest change, like people are having fatigue and, a lot of little like corrections. Usually when they correct their minerals, they see
It
changes
helps.
right away. I mean, you hear people talking about magnesium all the time, but like I'd never want to go to a podcast and be like, take magnesium, because to me, that's the least thing. But it is
relaxes
really
you.
important. No, but it's not just magnesium. It's potassium and chromium and calcium and sodium and,
And
there's
all the other things.
And all the other things that we
Yeah.
consume on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
But ideally, you would want to get them from food sources. Like to have a perfectly balanced diet is virtually impossible.
I think
though.
that's a little bit of a fallacy, is that we can. I think, like to her point, the soil is at the core level depleted. So the vegetables are depleted.
So no matter
Yeah.
what you're eating, you're like never going to be eating what your body actually requires.
Well, and
It's like interesting,
and
right?
maybe like in an ideal scenario you are, but I think people who have any form of chronic illness like really struggle, and people who with minerals specifically, because metals like mercury, a lot of chronic illnesses overlap with toxicity, right? So usually there's a few things going on, and we've identified that usually
That's
there's
interesting.
but sparing that conversation, when you have toxicity, it very easily deranges your minerals. So minerals get pulled and shunted and hyper used in one scenario and underused in others. So those are people that are really, which is like really like a lot of us have like some chronic stuff going on.
So do you think if you're chronically tired or
Mhm.
you're just like, you just don't feel like yourself anymore? Because I know like, well, when I had gained weight, I thought, oh, I'm just getting older. This is just it. Like, I just feel this way. And then when I lost weight, I was like, oh my God, it was because I had all this extra weight. So I know
Mhm.
that people are very body positive, but you don't realize how much you're suffering because it just like crept up on you in your everyday life, right?
You don't
And
realize it.
You don't realize that you're
But also,
suffering.
you got to think about it. When you age, things are slower.
Yeah.
So, for me, I'll be honest with you, it's all about maintaining. It's
Mhm.
never been about I'm too skinny or I'm too heavy or I don't look good. It's really been what I feed my body.
Right.
I really like it's so. I've been since I was 14.
That's so great.
Now I see it on my 16-year-old boy
Mhm.
that he eats and watches what he eats. And I think if you have this trait for the rest of your life, like you have no idea. Like
Right.
you're always gonna. And I mean, healthy issues. We can always get sick, no matter how
Right.
healthy you are. You know that.
Yeah.
I feel like what both of you were talking about, it's the same thing. It's really about alignment
Right.
with ourselves.
Mhm.
So like what she's saying, like when you're in alignment, you have a healthy pattern. What you're saying is that you were like completely out of alignment and you completely shut down an entire part of yourself.
Yeah.
And then you suffered a physical
Right.
ramification.
And then it
Well,
got you aligned.
Yeah. And then you realize that
Mhm.
that it isn't just getting older. that maybe there's something actually
There was
wrong,
something
or
going
maybe
on.
you do need to like look at your diet, or you do need to look at your supplements, or you do need to look at things like you think you might be doing everything right, but depending on what family you grew up in, what did your dinner table look like? Like everybody's dinner table looks different, right? What do they eat? Culturally, it's different. Family wise, it's different. So it's like you have the whatever your parents gave you, like in your head, and it's up to you to change that and to try to make it better for whatever generations you're bringing up, right? So I know that like I grew up in a total fast food household. It was not like, hey, everybody's having dinner. It was like, we're having corn and white rice. And you're like, that's healthy? Not anymore. But it was in 1996.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
And also implants were good for people with cancer, right?
Oh my
Silicone
gosh, right?
filled.
Yeah,
Okay,
silicone
seems
filled.
right.
You're like, it's like, that makes no sense.
It
You
really
can have
is.
them, but you can't.
But as
Okay.
these things are coming up in society, I feel like it's like, oh my gosh, this should have all been like a no-brainer. Like it's so crazy because the things that we're discovering now, when you really sit down and think about it, they make more sense. Like it just seems like it makes more sense.
For me, I have had a lot of stress in my life, and Gemma and I both went through some significant trauma with our ex-husbands or whatever we're calling them. And then I know that has such a huge impact on your adrenals. Why is that the place it goes?
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the way our nervous system behaves when we're in a state of survival. So the nervous system has a relationship with your adrenals because that's how we get those corticosteroids and those like hormones like adrenaline out when you need to run from a predator.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a relationship between glucose and the way we basically turn food into energy for fuel. So when you're in a state of chronic stress is what you called it, but really your body thinks you're in survival. And so it's just pushing and pushing and pushing.
It's
and
really
then,
hard to break
and
down
then,
about.
and then you crash when you feel safe, and then you can't think because you don't have histamine driving those neurotransmitter reactions.
You can't think, you don't
Yeah.
care. You just, I don't know. It's going through the family situation of just that separation, I feel. And I can relate to that because I do family law.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm a paralegal. I deal with
Divorce specialty.
Divorce. Yeah. I've been doing it for 18 years. So I
Wow.
see a lot of, broken families.
Right.
And whether you're a mom, you're a dad, or you're never had children, regardless of it, there was something that tied you together that now you have to learn how to live on your own. And I think that's a lot of to know like of the what ifs, and then just that you can't be together. So you have to separate, but you think about your future and like, or maybe you failed at something, but at the end of the day, it's maybe something that's going to make you stronger, and you just have to let time heal.
Yeah, it's
And
just
by
scary.
doing that, it is scary. It is
Yeah,
something very
it's
scary.
just
I see
scary.
it every day.
Yeah.
But it's just because you're not used to being alone. You're just not used to sleeping in your own bed. But that's a whole other topic I can get into.
Yeah.
But again, that trauma that Kate's saying, that's part of like trying to release that through through everything.
Well, and that's what manifests in all
Yes.
these health issues.
Right.
I think I know it did for me.
right.
And then you're used to living in that. You go fight or flight, right? All the time. And then you're having an argument, you have a crazy husband or whatever. We have this situation.
Right.
And so you're living like that sometimes for years. And when you're finally out of the situation,
You're like,
and
what do I do?
something for me is that cycle was still there. So I could see myself creating issues for myself based on this up and down roller coaster that I was on for 8 years. And so it took me probably 3 years of cautious effort to really look at my actions and be like, okay, you're acting on impulse, or, oh, there's chemicals going off in your brain, or, oh, you're not really thinking that through. But it's crazy how powerful your brain is, because you get in these motions,
And then you have to kind of learn how to love yourself again, and how to be yourself again,
Yeah.
and all of that. And you forget about what you look like, because you're trying to just move on with life.
And sometimes
your
not
life.
even again, sometimes for the
Right.
first time ever, depending on your childhood.
Right.
You're like, oh, it's okay to accept something that's good for yourself and not feel guilty about it.
Exactly.
It's interesting.
That's you just brought it full circle, right?
Right.
That's the lesson. Maybe that's why you went through that pain that your soul called in the first place, was so you could go through that and learn it. Like you just said, you didn't learn it in childhood and you had to wait. And so, I think these tests come and we keep repeating them until we solve them.
If you're lucky.
But then
If you're lucky, you solve them.
You do see people that go through divorce, like what you were talking about, Maribel, and then all of a sudden they want to get tons of work done,
Right,
all
right.
at once,
No,
just
but I
to
like
try
that.
to mask what they're feeling.
Is it masking, or is it a form of
Stepping.
self-care? Is it I mean, okay. So this relates to beauty biohacking, right? Because we can talk about a dysfunctional way to do that process, and we can talk about like an intentional, proactive, positive way to approach that process, right?
True.
So are you tapping into your innate creativity? Are you using it as a vehicle to expand into a more authentic, fuller, larger, better and better version of yourself?
True.
Or are you using it as another vehicle of pain? Like, I've talked to women who have a strong victim mentality around even their augmenting. Oh, like I have to augment because I'm so, inadequate. And this is just further evidence of my inadequacy that I have to do this painful procedure, and like, oh, like the pain of the procedure, and why is this happening? Like, it just goes on and on and on.
And sometimes pressure from a spouse.
Why society is making right. So you
can all these things, all the different things you feel.
So which one what is the driving factor?
It could be also the relationship. Like you're in this bubble and you just always been in that bubble and you never seen yourself out of that bubble. Like you've always, it could be a lot of things. It could be also the damaging that spouse did, not necessarily that person, but the relationship of what caused everything, what made you be this way, feel bad about yourself, not love yourself. I mean, it's, you're coming out of something that was not good for you. That was not good. Whether that person's a good person and you're a good person, but you were just not good for each other.
Right. And I feel like that's an interesting way to look at it too. It's a huge conversation actually about motivation into, modifying your body or any of these things, because I don't really have an opinion about it, whether it's bad or good. I think that being confident leads your whole life. So if it's being confident, which I like what Dr. Kate said about using it as a positive thing, like concentrating this on your body, like removing it from trauma, like pushing through it and deserving it and feeling better about yourself and acknowledging that you feel better about yourself instead of looking at it from a victim's point of view where I have to do this. It's like, no, this is going to give me more confidence. This is going to allow me to make better decisions, have better business deals, be out in public, feel better about myself. Life is too short to sit at home hating yourself or to not put on the bathing suit and go to the beach and not put on your skis and go skiing because you don't like your ass wibbling in the wind or whatever. Just be confident and enjoy your life and don't judge other people for doing it.
You see a lot of women who augment and they really are feeling themselves, right? They love it, right? All of a sudden they have the confidence to do a lot of things. And I think that's beautiful. I think that also there's a positive, and we don't talk about this very much, but in these circles we don't, or in general circles, but there is sort of like a cultural signaling among our peers, especially we could look at Los Angeles or Orange County. And, we all kind of do a lot of the same things and we kind of all have a certain look. And that's sort of how we know that we're like a culture. And some people from the outside, it's very tempting to want to, throw stones. And it's also that can be beautiful too, because we're signaling back to community and it doesn't have to be a toxic thing. A lot of people want to say it is, they do, you know what I'm talking about, right?
It's very interesting. And yes, because even for me, when I was I have had the same friends my whole life, right? And then things changed and then I lost weight and I could see that things had changed. And you go out to eat and you're more cautious of what you're eating, but your friend's still ordering whatever. And then what are you trying to prove? I would get weird comments. I'm I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm trying to not die at 50. Wow. That's what I'm trying to do. So, and then as you become more confident with yourself, I don't think it's necessarily having the surgery. I think it's that your life changes when you're confident. And so confidence allows you to get involved in things, to show up for things, to
not be
part of things. You're not negative anymore. You can't even hear the negative anymore.
No.
When you're done dealing with your own negativity, it's hard to stay in environments where that's just what happens all day. You're I can't do this. It's so hard. So I think that, for me, I'm writing a book and one of the 4 keys in my book is confidence to achieving anything you want in life. So I think that it really makes all the difference because I know there's many times where I didn't want to go out in public or I didn't want to eat in public, especially with people, because you're very overweight. And I was very overweight. And so it's people look at you well, you shouldn't be eating that. Well, you still have to eat. This is the problem with being overweight is that even if you do still have to eat during the day, right? So it's just these different ways that people look at you and it changes. And I never thought, because I was always outgoing, I owned my own business, I was always very successful, even though I was overweight, I never like looked at myself like as an overweight person. You know what I mean? Or like I couldn't do something because of my weight until I lost weight. And then I realized how much I was missing out on and how much people actually didn't respect me that I thought they did respect me, that when it changed. And it was like, okay, because now you look like you're mentally okay. The problem is when you're in business and you're very overweight, people do look at you like you're mentally not okay. There must be something wrong for you to be this overweight, right? So it's not even from a health perspective. So the way those dynamics change, I think is really, really important to address. And you have to maintain your trueness to yourself, like what your goals are, and go after them regardless of what your friends and family think. Like, oh, why would you want to have your breasts done? Like right? It really doesn't matter. It's your decision with you.
You're always gonna have somebody's feedback. That's why I tell my kids, when you go to the store, you see one style of shoe but 5 colors. Because guess what? You might like the red, you might like the purple, I might like the yellow, you might like the orange.
Right.
That's why they made 5 colors.
Right.
So you see what I'm saying? That's what I tell my kids. And you're right, Mom. I love that concept. It's true.
It is true.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think it's all very interesting. I agree that it's just so much in your head, the whole majority of it. But I love the whole working on the mind-body connection, you know, besides having the supplement and like if you have this, but there is like a whole emotional side to everything as well.
Absolutely.
I love your story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
That is really good.
Thanks.
I can't wait to read your book.
We're still on the way to the moon right now.
We are
right?
on the way. I love
Wow.
it. You had mentioned something earlier, Dr. Kate, about if you're thinking to yourself, like, I want to get my glutes, like I really want to build my glutes. Is that positive body talk, or is that your conscious or your subconscious saying my glutes aren't good enough? Which, I mean, how does that
That's
work?
interesting.
And I told myself I would never tell this story, but it's like we're on this topic. I went through this, like this is for my personal story, is that I was kind of bullied in childhood for not having like any like butt. Like I was, I grew up in an area in Florida. It was it was in the South, and like there was an emphasis on a certain body type that was considered. And this was like, I was very young when I remember it happened. I was maybe 7. And I was kind of bullied, I guess, for being too skinny. And so I developed an insecurity about my glutes, and I would always think about them and wish they were big, you know, so it's just, I don't know if negative or positive, why the insecurity pattern happened, like why that came into my movie, why this person decided, why it hurt me. I don't know. I can't answer those questions. Those are like questions for my soul. But it did show me something when, you know, after I put focus on it, one day, like it just appeared, and all of a sudden my butt, you know, came out, and it was great. And I started college, and I think it had a lot to do with like being a wrestler, and I was cutting weight. And then when I finally started eating, and I had muscle combined with fat, and all of a sudden it was like powerful. A miracle. And I remember thinking, this is a miracle. Like I had no idea what had actually happened scientifically behind the scenes. I really thought that it was like a miracle, that I had wished for it and it happened. So that really inspired me to have confidence in my ability to manifest things. And I didn't understand. Now I understand that there's a neural pathway, that I just put focus into that area. And so like neural pathways, can they be good? Can they be bad? It's like, well, if I'm building a road to an addictive behavior, we know that's dysfunctional, right? When you're building a road towards like gambling, that becomes the 405 and all your dopamine, and then you try to shut down the 405 because you don't want to gamble, and then you don't have any have any roads built to like, oh, that's a nice sunset, I'm going to enjoy it. No, you can't enjoy a sunset, right? So that can be dysfunctional. I've also found that like fears can be like a really dysfunctional way to build pathways, like thinking too much about a fear, going through like something that causes panic, and then that pathway is harder to shut down. So, you know, getting into neuroscience is really complicated, but
dysmorphia.
Dysmorphia, exactly.
And then you're constantly seeing that's the thing about social media. You see somebody and you want their teeth, or you want their smile, you want their nose. And it's just like you start creating this thing in your mind that you want to become, when ideally that smile might not be good for your face, or you might not look good with those teeth, you know? And it's just like, that's why we're so, like, if you notice, like we all have one nose, but it's all different, right? And it's just the same format. It's crazy. So when you start just, you know, saying, well, what looks good on me? Because then you start looking like everybody else. Like my mom says, you start looking like everybody else. Like you need to be you. For me, I used to do filler. And then I started realizing that I wasn't looking like me. I wasn't looking like myself. So I dissolved all my filler. And then sometimes I would go get my lips done and then I would dissolve it because I wasn't happy. So I said to myself, no more.
Right.
I'm like, if it's non-invasive, if it's not PRP, if it's not building collagen, if it's not that way, which is the slow way, but the most, the most rewarding way, then I'm not doing it.
But super effective.
Oh, and that's such a good point. And like, just to bring up, like, I love what you just said, because it's about like delaying instant gratification. So I think that's a big conversation around, and that's why these plastic surgery accounts are getting in trouble, is because they're driving a culture of instant gratification, which we know, and like you said earlier, we can apply this to all forms of life and things, right? Like the steady daily light is much better than the bright blowout light that leaves you completely on your butt for a week.
Gratification. That's like a whole episode on delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Because one, when you get it, it feels so much better when you waited for it. You're like, it's an accomplishment, right? But I also think that that's part of the culture too. Like, I was like addicted to Starbucks, but I don't drink Starbucks. But I just knew, like, I want it, I got it. I want it, I got it.
It was
I would go get it, drink a sip, let it rot.
Right.
I mean, it was just like ridiculous. But it was just a matter of like having something you can control every morning. You're like, I can get this, I want it, and it's like subconscious.
It's dopamine.
Yeah, it's a dopamine hit of just getting what you want.
Same thing, like instant gratification. You get it done, and then maybe months later, you're like, did I really need it?
And then you're not happy though.
And then you're
sometimes
not happy
too
with the results because maybe I should do this after. That's the thing that creates this.
That's interesting too. That's like the whole addiction thing too. Even with going to see your med spa nurse,
with augmenting,
right, or anything like that. It's like you go, you're happy, everyone's like, oh, you look good, and then it wears off like 4 days later, and then you're already looking for the next thing because you're like, you want that whole thing again, and then you're like in this bad cycle. You're like, okay, I just need to like relax, just like it's okay to just wait. I mean, I tell myself that multiple times a day. I'm like, you can wait till tomorrow. You can hold out. You don't need to buy that right now. Why don't you wait a week and not buy that, or whatever it is. And I do that to myself to try to talk.
I'm like, if I don't buy it, it's going to be gone.
Yeah, right. I keep telling myself that there'll always be another way.
Someone's going to pick that up.
Yeah, right. It may be true, but we have to be okay with it.
Yeah, I know. It's okay to walk away.
Right. It's okay to walk away.
But chasing your happiness through material objects
instead of like
augmenting yourself.
Material objects are just something that you buy instantly. You get that instant gratification. You take it home. In 4 days, you want something else. You forgot about that already. It's
crazy.
It's like a cycle, like you said.
Yeah.
It's just,
that's like an actual thing I totally have trouble with.
Yeah.
You were talking, Maribel, about how, like, especially this younger generation on social media, they see, like, they want to look like everyone that they see on social media. So to your point, that might not look good on you just because this person has these incredible lips and then you put them on a tiny little face, it's going to be a whole different thing. So how do you find these doctors that actually when we spoke to Gravity Med Spa, they were talking about the fact that they try to give an overall perspective of what would look good on you. They don't just let someone walk in the door and say, I want huge lips. They want to look at the whole person. So being able to find those types of doctors and estheticians.
They're hard. We've been through you go to a place and then you tell them like, well, do I need this? Do you need that? Well, how much do you want? And that's when you need to walk away, because if they're telling you how much you want, then that's not the place for you. They need to tell you what will look good on you, or they might have to tell you, you know what, you're good. You don't need it. But
absolutely.
What
and
place
unfortunately, this is a you get what you pay for type of thing. As somebody who literally managed a cosmetic surgery center with 2 med spas, after that, I mean, all the girls are trained to push as much as they can. So, I mean, they're like, okay, well, if somebody comes in, then you want to do this on their chin. Maybe they just come in for a little filler. By the time they leave, they're like 7 syringes in, full face, everything. And they're trained to do that. So it's not, you have to find a doctor that you really trust, that just wants to help you maybe maintain a natural look and help you achieve what your goals are so that you're happy and confident with yourself. Because most of the people are not happy when they go in for like a little bit of Botox and they leave 800 units later.
They feel like they walk out the same. They're like, well, the reason I came here because I want to look different. I want to look like her. I want to look like her. I want to look like, and it's like, I'm sorry, but there's doctors that tell you it's non-achievable. I mean, I went to the doctor one time. I was sitting there and there was a lady arguing with the doctor because she wanted to get fillers. And the doctor said, I can't do fillers on you because I'm not going to change you.
Right.
You need a facelift. And she was like, why are you telling me I need a facelift? Because you do. So she walked out of there and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, what just happened? Because he literally turned her down. He's like, I'm not going to change your face. Like,
well, that's a good doctor. Because there are some doctors that would just fill up whatever you want. So that's a good doctor. actually.
I think it's happening younger and younger. My daughter's 18, and I see these girls like chasing the looks that they see because of the social media and what they think that they could achieve if they look like this particular celebrity. You know?
Has
Right.
your daughter asked you that she wants to do something?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
she's all. I mean, her whole generation is eyelash extensions and hair extensions, and
right,
at
that's
such a
fine.
young age, it
That's
just
like
was.
my
And
daughter's,
it's like,
yeah.
I don't have a daughter, but if my daughter came to me, I mean, how do I answer something that I do or that Mom, you do it? I mean, it's a whole other conversation. But
Right.
again, I have boys, but I mean, having a daughter, I'm assuming it's a little bit more difficult because they might want breast implants or they might want, so it's how do you get into that
Yeah.
conversation of like, babe, it's too soon, you're still developing,
Yeah.
it's just, you're beautiful the way you are, which I'm sure most people now wish they were all natural to begin with and start
Right.
fresh and know everything that biohacking has to offer now that you can do an alternative than
Education.
cutting your body and putting foreign objects in your body.
Yeah, there's so
You
many
know?
things you can do.
There has been a big movement. I actually got a call, of course, to do a reality show about removing all of your stuff. And there's some big celebrities that are behind that right now.
A lot of them.
And do
China
you
talks
see
about
how that process is the same process as augmenting in the first place? Do you see how it's
Yeah.
the same, like spiritually and emotionally, that it's actually the
Right.
same?
Yeah.
Like we're still trying to solve for the same underlying
Problem.
reasons.
Mental.
Yeah.
The relationship, the mind-body relationship, right?
Yeah,
It's
it all goes back to that.
I think Christy Teigen's big in that
Yeah.
whole movement.
Oh, but she also had an eyebrow transplant, which
She
we
did,
both
which
did
we both did too.
But
An eyebrow transplant.
Yeah.
What is that?
What does that
I mean,
mean?
I'm just saying it's like maybe like being there's
show
just so many ways to approach these things, like what we consider natural, what we don't. And I don't know. We have to meet people where they are and support them in what they want. And if they make the wrong decision, that's their path. They have to figure that out, go through that, learn, change, grow.
Right.
What are we here to do? We're not here to inhibit other people's like free will and decisions.
And that's the same with the doctor. So the surgeon that I
Right.
used to work for, like people would come in and they just wanted like a little lift, right? Just a little. And he'd be like, I'm not doing it. Something, because it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a
Right.
dramatic change.
Right.
And it was like one of the big things was helping the surgeon realize that a lot of people don't want a dramatic change. They
Yeah.
just want to a
Be
little
lifted.
little
That's
bit.
it.
Yeah.
And then getting into the conversation of like economy and like, the business of anything we're doing, of course, but it's like, we can't solve for everything. People have to have personal accountability for their actions, right?
True.
And their interactions with
100%.
other people. It's like, we
True.
can't control business, right?
Yeah.
So what were you saying about taking everything away though? And then how is that similar to wanting everything?
Oh, okay. I like how you posed that question.
Right. It's really good.
Well, because both are a search for a more expanded version of ourselves. So some people think that if I have more, I'm going to be more. And some people think, no, if I need to take away to be more me. And that's actually a very deep conversation in spiritual philosophy around like, what are we? Like, what are we truly at our core? And some people would say at our core, we're everything we're meant to be. That's our true self. And then someone else could say, what we are is taking away everything that was put on us that's not us. It's like, it's the same thing. That's why I said it's the same
That's
thing.
really interesting.
That goes back to what we talked about, the
Mhm.
mind.
Mhm.
It is the most powerful thing that we have. So sometimes you have to set your mind to really.
Oh, I don't totally agree with you.
Go ahead.
I do believe the mind is really powerful, but how do we like know what the mind is doing? It's that relationship with the creator, right?
Right,
It's the
right.
soul. It's the soul
Well, it's the
that
soul.
drives the mind, that drives the body.
Correct. So
Mhm.
it's the soul to the mind. So,
Yeah.
right, the connection to the mind. So let's go back to the soul. You're right. If you tell your soul that this is the way it needs to be and this is who
Yeah.
you are, go on.
Oh my!
Okay.
You ask the soul
Okay.
what is right. Then the creator, the soul, the relationship tells you, drives you. That's your alignment. Then your mind can utilize like the power of
And
the
expand.
field to expand
Okay.
through the physical power of the tissue, of the modality, of the interaction with the other person, of the collaborative energies,
Got
of the environment. What
It's
so is that?
interesting.
Yeah,
I
that
didn't-
makes sense.
That's
Yeah.
how I feel. But like,
Yeah.
I'll hear you on what
No. It makes perfect sense. You're right. It's the soul. It starts us with the soul because you have to want to do it and you have to give that information to the brain so it can come out.
I mean,
the
human
body.
beings are complex.
Right.
I mean, really.
It's true.
I mean, because I can like stand by something today and I always tell people sometimes I'm like, I might change my mind tomorrow and I'm not 100%, but right now I totally believe this, right?
No, yeah.
But new things happen. You change your mind. You understand yourself better.
True.
Like, I mean, a lot of things can happen. And I think that we're just complex people. Like you go and you get augmented and maybe that works for you for however many years. And then you want to not be augmented, which is like a whole new thing, but it also could be part of the whole journey.
Mhm.
Of
I mean, look at
how
the
you're dealing with
Kardashians.
yourself.
What did they do? They put glutes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now they're removing it. They're removing
It's
it.
a lot
It's
more
like
than
a whole
glutes.
movement now. Like
Yeah.
everybody wants
Well,
to
because
do that
butts
now.
are out now.
Well, I mean, what's in?
Butts are
Can you
in,
tell
butts
me
are out.
what's in? What's in?
I don't know what's in. I can't keep track of it
I
all.
think
It's
the
way
goal
too
is to
much.
be like so secure with yourself that you are only making these decisions based on what you truly want within yourself, not based on
It's just-
outside
it's-
influence.
And that's society right now.
It's
though.
hard.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
like,
the
'cause
hard part.
if you could be your authentic self and just listen to your soul and your mind, it would
Especially
be
at
amazing.
age
But
eight.
unfortunately, there's so much
Right.
noise coming from
No,
all
but the
different
noise-
directions.
It's
But
everywhere.
the noise is what is actually a guide. It helps you to like understand like what your problem is that you need to work on, right? Because if like the same thing that you hear from society that makes you feel a certain way, it might not make me feel that way. So what is the reason? It's something unique to you. That is actually your soul communicating with you because your soul wants you to let go of that
That's
specific
interesting.
pain. Your soul wants you to let go of that specific pain so that you can be more transformed into light. And like your cue of what you need to work on is very often derived from external forces because we're all connected.
So what if your mind is telling you something and your soul's telling you another?
Then you probably need to pray more and like get more clarity and get more in alignment, and then the answers come, right?
Right.
And sometimes like it's a layer. So one thing is behind another thing is behind another thing. And it's interesting now that I'm thinking more about what you asked about like doing something then undoing it. It's like, well, maybe in that initial attempt, they didn't fully like unearth the true issue. Like they didn't actually expand, right? Maybe they contracted more, but that rebounding, like in physics, even the deeper contraction propelled them more forward when they removed it to free them more into themselves. Does that make sense? It's possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's interesting too because for both Gemma and I, we were in abusive relationships, and so when you have so much negative voices coming at a negative voice or multiple negative voices coming at you, telling you all the things that are wrong with you all the time. It's hard not to accept those after a period of time. If you're told over and over again that you're stupid, I mean, eventually you're going to think there must be something to this because I've been told this so many times.
I would think that if that was your unique, experience, that it's something around like you're probably so smart, you're smarter than everyone, and that's what you have to learn. And the only way for you to really learn that was to be given like this agitating, like opposite polarized message, right? Because the rebound from that once you learn, and it's like that's what your soul wanted.
And then soon you're just like, screw you.
So you're saying
I don't think
somebody
you know what you're talking about.
Wait, so you're saying that somebody told her she was stupid because they knew that she was too smart and they wanted her
because she has to learn how smart she is.
That wasn't exactly the adjectives he used. He used lots of them, but he was very creative. But I'm just thinking about like, when you're around negative speak is why you like surrounding yourself with positive people is so important because I feel like no matter how
100%.
much you're connected with your soul and your mind, if you have negative speak around you constantly, it's very difficult not to let that
It's just
infiltrate.
like it's like you gravitate if you hang out with somebody that constantly is using, bad words, for example, like you're going to eventually say it, I mean, you are who you hang out with.
Well, that happened to me. I spent like 2 years with this girl who cussed like I was embarrassed everywhere we went. And the next thing you know, I'm like cussing like a truck driver. We were just talking about that. I'm like, I grew up in a family where like nobody said anything. And if I say a bad word in front of my dad, he just looks at me like I am the bottom of his shoe. Like he is just like, oh my God, I cannot believe you're my daughter. You just said the F word.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I picked it up. And now I had to like actually retrain my brain.
Right. That's just an example of one of many things.
Yeah. Like I think with like just, if you had already learned the lesson of how smart you are, maybe you would never have even been in that relationship. But until you were able to do that,
that's a great
you
point.
had to go through so much pain because that was the only way that like really just forced you to acknowledge the truth, right? And now that you've gone through that, I don't think it's going to happen again. I don't think anyone's ever going to call you those names or tell you those things. Your consciousness wouldn't even accept
but it won't have impact.
But you know what? Too?
It would not. Like it's like the
Words
old
are
phrase.
really hard.
You're just like, wow.
I am rubber, you are glue.
Hit
Right?
like
The
a
old
sword,
phrase.
like
Totally.
a double-edged sword. They really do. They penetrate. That's why there's a lot of young people that grow up and say, I still remember you said this to me. And I'm like, not me. I'm just generally speaking.
Right.
And, they remember that. So sometimes you have to like let go of something and just put it behind you and know that you're in a better place now. you're definitely the negativity that came out of that. You've built it and turned it into a positive, and that's what you need to do. Even when you're surrounded yourself by negative people, I always tend to turn it into positive.
Right.
That's just me. Like, I will not allow myself to be negative.
And sometimes it takes a lot. Sometimes I have to say it takes a lot to pull yourself out of that.
Yes,
Especially when, if you look at like social economics, why you're in a certain situation. It's like, sometimes everything that you should be doing and you're trying to align yourself, but like sometimes you're in a situation, and I don't mean necessarily myself, but a lot of people are in a situation to where even though they have total clarity on what they should do, like even say an actress that doesn't want to get hair extensions, she doesn't want to redo her boob job for a part or whatnot, and she can be true to herself and not do those things, but she can also not work. So it's an interesting thing, because sometimes we're at war with ourselves because of our standard situations and whatnot. It's not like what we don't know. It's like what's actually possible in our lives, right? And so when you're pulling yourself, I know for me, everything that ever taught me anything was extremely hard, that you get through, and then you learn all the lessons.
Well, it takes time to heal.
But it takes a lot of time. It does. And sometimes it's not as easy to just be positive, especially when you're living in a hard space.
Yeah, sometimes you hear it from your friends, like, oh, let it go, like just move on. It's like, you can't, or like a bad relationship that you can't leave. And it's true, because you have to leave, but you can't. And your friends are telling you, but your friends are not in the situation. Right. They don't understand like what's really keeping you there,
but
whatever it is.
But it's still like, it's okay to be in negativity. And we've talked about a pain being the currency that's driving the positive, right? You have to have it. But like, is there a way that your consciousness, when you're inside of these pains and struggles and negativities and confining situations, like you mentioned with your job and the culture,
right,
can you also step outside just enough to be able to say, like, I know that this is for my highest good, even though it hurts and I have to feel it? And is there a way that I can just sort of identify more with allowing the feeling of the pain? So now I have two selves in this scenario. I have the self that's enduring the hardship, and then I have the self that's allowing it, and then and also the self that's saying, I know this is good. It's gonna eventually be way better, right? And then that starts to really ease and allow. Otherwise, I think you just stay in a struggle and you just bounce in more and more struggle. But it's like, it's not staying positive, because like you said, you can't be positive when you're going through something so hard. You can't, but you can also find a way to separate yourself just enough.
Well, I think letting it flow through you is positive, because then you get caught up
exactly.
otherwise.
So there's ways of like converting it. Like it's not in a positive, like this happened to me, like I got to think positive. Well, it happened. Like, how are you going to deal with it? Well, think of the scenarios, process it of how am I going to deal with it to turn it into maybe like processing.
Yes, the processing. Like, I'm just going to remain calm until I have all the tools I need to escape the situation. Right. But it is like better than being in bed crying for hours on end, or not being able to go to work because you're so negative, or you're like crumpling down, or crying in your closet, or all the things that happen. Or like overwhelmed. I think it's like, okay, so I'm not in a situation I want to be in. This isn't good for me physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, whatever. But I'm slowly working towards being where I want to be, right? So I think it's like using those tools. So I do agree with that.
It would be interesting if there was some way to gauge how much chronic illness is related to stress and pain.
There is. It's called the ACE test. It's the Childhood Adversity Index score. So it's like a psychological tool that you take, and like you score someone based on like it's all in childhood, and then there's correlation between your score and chronic illness.
What's it called? What's it called again?
The ACE test, Adverse Childhood Adversity Index, I believe.
We have to put that up.
Not only that, I think we need to take it.
We do need to take it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to get an F.
So it asks you questions like, did you feel like unsafe? Like, did you have a parent? Did you observe like one or more of your parents like in an abusive relationship? Like, did you have a parent in prison? Did you have, it talks, gets into like abandonment. Like, there's a lot of statistics around chronic disease, I believe, in like adoption. Like, there's, various. Yes, there's a lot.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And yes, 100%. Negative childhood outcomes are associated with chronic disease in life.
Right. I love
that.
I know. Well, I got Hashimoto's. Well, first I had Graves' disease when I was a kid. And then when I had it ablated, my thyroid ablated, and then it switched to Hashimoto's, which I don't know how that happened. But I think it is from like just stress at a young age. or something. That'd be interesting to take that test and see how that turns
So.
out.
Let's definitely put the link up.
I love how
Yes.
far we got. It's so interesting how this stuff is so related to why as women we seek the validation of augmentation, right? Which was like the initial point of the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just evolved into something really
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, because it can also be a Band-Aid. I mean, right. So
Of
then
course.
if I'm getting a procedure done, then I don't have to think about the fact that I have internal issues going on. I don't have to face those things and have to do the real hard work
Yeah.
Right.
on the stuff that's going on the inside. So I'll
Yep.
just fix something on the outside and it's make me feel better for like a week or two. And then
Yep.
but all that stuff is still there.
Right.
All this stuff
And then
on
you
the
have
inside.
to take it away to then face that same thing. I don't
Exactly.
Yeah,
You have to
I
take
love
it
how
away
we figured
still.
that out. That
That's
was
so
so
interesting.
beautiful. It was
But
so
you-
beautiful.
I know this was a long time ago, but we were talking about the minerals. And so but I'm just curious with your supplements or with any supplements, because you were saying that your B12 was too high.
Mhm.
Is it blood work? How do we know where our deficiencies
Yeah,
lie?
there's a lot of different tests you can do, like from blood work to like urine tests. There's like electro. There's actually really great like electro scans now that you can check the mineral levels really easily. You
my
can look at
gosh.
heavy metals. It's depending on what specific marker you're trying to understand.
Yeah, we have a lot of tests to take, Gemma.
Yeah, we have tests. We need links for
I
all
mean,
these
I
things.
was shocked when they told me about the B12. I mean, literally, I said,
Yeah.
I didn't know that you could be high on B12. Again, we don't know the moral of the story, but I mean, I don't.
The moral
That's what it read in my. results.
So yeah, like when you're like ramping up your dosage
Yeah.
and you're not converting it into like its active form, it's going to start. I mean, it can also happen in infection. I mean, there's various reasons why B12 can be elevated. Yeah.
That's wild.
That's why we
So,
go to bio-individual.
If somebody wants to buy these supplements, try these supplements, all that stuff, where do they find you?
Yeah, so right now it's just one formula, which is silicone support formula.
Okay.
I'm in the process of creating more formulas that support other elements of aesthetics
Oh,
that
I
we
love
do.
that.
But right now it's just silicone support formula. If you go to drkates.com or siliconesupportformula.com.
drkates.com.
7 days. We're going on it right now.
Yeah, let's
We're
do
gonna
it.
I
feel
brought
tighter.
you some.
I know, we're excited
I'm
to
gonna
try
track
them.
your journey.
I know, absolutely. I've been
a
having a
great
lot of
idea.
blood work done recently, so I'm gonna have to go back and see if they're testing for minerals and things
Well,
like that.
this is not a mineral supplement. I don't think there's even any minerals in it. It's not meant to supplement because I just believe so much in like a mineral. Like minerals are really important, so you have to dose them according to what your needs are daily, like a lot. This is meant to be like a low dose. It's other nutrients that your body needs, like the glutathione substrates, the immune system. Yeah, well, I won't do
Oh
it
my
again.
gosh. Do you have a mineral supplement that you love?
Well, I take like 4 different things
Mhm.
to get them in. Yeah, I love Carolyn Dean's magnesium. I use her liquid magnesium in my water every day. I use Dr. Pompa's mineral supplement. He created, it's not actually available to the public yet, but him and the people behind Ancient Nutrition, Jordan, they have this regenerative farm where they are starting to grow all of their nutrients on a substrate of fulvic acid and mushrooms. So these are like,
Typical. We were just talking about mushrooms.
exactly, because we were talking about like the soil and
Mhm.
how do you even create a product? And he could speak to this better than I could, but I use his mineral. It's really like a mineral on steroids because of the substrate that it's grown in. And I take new salt potassium. I have to megadose my potassium for some reason. It's just like my body. I don't recommend that, but some people need to. I'm trying to think what else. I take a ton of peptides. Maribel and I are both taking a ton of copper GHKCU
Mhm.
for collagen. We're
Copper.
taking copper GHKCU, not just copper regular.
Yeah, copper.
Yeah, the copper tripeptide.
Yeah.
So really quickly.
Okay.
Okay, what are your top, like say top 5 biohacking tips?
Okay, so
Like what do you do pretty much
beauty
daily?
biohacking or
Yeah.
biohacking?
Biohacking.
Biohacking, not beauty.
Yeah, all of it.
How about beauty and biohacking?
Okay.
Because
That's your
biohacking is
mix.
like different.
What
So
are the
if
top like super accessible things
Yeah.
people could do?
Okay, number 1, glutathione spray. We talked about it. We have a code for a limited time, 15% off. We'll link it. Actually, that's if
Yes,
they will.
let's link
if
it.
they will
Yes.
allow us to extend the code. This company does not really do like very many discounts. These are really good. They don't have to. Okay, number 2, I'm gonna say we're doing fascia. We're doing a combination of fascia, like reworking with the
Mhm.
roller and the infrared heat in the sauna. So we're doing that at Cosmo
A
Contour
Contour.
in Los Angeles, but there, maybe there's other places.
Mhm.
I'm using an EMS suit, which is like a way to work out.
Oh, we saw that. Was that the same suit that was at the conference?
Yeah, Catalyst.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
Yeah,
The
that was very
It's
Catalyst
cool.
suit
a
was
huge
awesome.
biohack because
Right.
like you don't have to do the same amount of exercise you normally do, and you're able to get into muscles that your brain is not in, right? Because we're bypassing the brain having to go there, and we're just doing it, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to
Limb.
say the EECP that we just did.
Oh my God, this one that
we just did a machine that it's a heart rate monitor that connects to your heart rhythm, and then it squeezes your biggest muscles, and it drives so much blood back and forth to your heart in a 40-minute session that it's like doing 3 hours of cardio.
Really?
So
it contrasts to like your heart rate. So if your heart rate skips a beat, it stops. Like
so when the heart chamber starts to fill in diastole, it pushes the blood. And it was actually invented to help remedy a heart attack before we had other heart attacks. So what it does is because our vessels, like when we're sedentary, they're not flexing and moving. So we're not getting like the release of those endogenous like nitric oxide and VEGF and
everything.
Right. So it's amazing for the body. Was that 5? Did I get 5?
Okay. And what about the lymph massages? We're also doing lymph massages.
Well, we kind of touch on lymph, but you can.
Well, we just do lymph massages because I had eye surgery again. So I've been doing lymph on my face and on my body. And this is something that I've been doing forever. The infrared sauna that we do, which I know you talked about, red light, which is my favorite. I mean, I have one at home. I do it. And then I do sauna bed too. I have a sauna bed that I've had for 10 years and I keep buying it every 5 years because I burn it out. That I have to constantly do. And of course, your basic workout, we do Pilates, you know. And we do
Pilates is my favorite.
We love.
I have to do anything. I love Pilates.
We love Pilates, and I see why you would like it because it's very stabilizing to the small muscle groups, which actually helps to stabilize the mast cells that we talked about earlier.
And I always feel like I'm so much stronger.
It lengthens your body too. It makes your posture, also helps with posture,
and it's fun to do.
And it's fun. It's fun. I like it.
So, what did we say before? Like dating younger men. Wasn't that one of our beauty biohacks for the summer?
Well, that is a beauty biohack. Okay, dating younger men. I think that should be number one.
Wait, what happened?
That will keep you young.
Yeah, absolutely.
That will keep you young.
Absolutely.
Oh my!
I'm gonna get fired from all the
biohack is date younger men. Oh my God.
No, but I agree. And actually, for men dating younger
you better
women,
not tell your
probably is a
husband
biohack. No, I mean, like, my husband is 12 years older than me.
I know.
So, and I've watched him become like less active. And so I'm less active. So I think like just by default, dating somebody who's younger and more active, that's like, out dancing at a concert or just going dancing or like leaving the house or going hiking back bay or like whatever you're doing, you're not like tired and want to sit on the couch.
It's a controversial concept, and it's going to trigger some people. And if a bunch of men were up here and they were like, "Yeah, do younger women," I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed, but
because that's the norm.
Yeah, but if it switches, right?
Exactly.
And
but I think it's both ways.
We're not talking about like a pathological predatory approach to dating. We're talking about a season, and maybe that's something that in your season is going to work really well to really like invigorate you.
Yeah. I feel like this is a
if
whole
you're already
new
single
episode that we're going to have to start talking about this topic. I love it. We actually were talking the other day about big age differences in relationships and celebrities, and it is typically the older man, younger woman thing. So this is the new beauty bio.
This is it. You're like trying to stay young, you find younger spouse.
Well, I mean, we could talk about it. You guys are all pretty much single. I'm married, but if I join the conversation, you're married. Okay, I'm married.
Are you single?
Oh, she's married.
Oh, we're all married. Okay.
I am not married.
No, that's why.
So
we're gonna have to live
she's
vicariously
looking for
through
a younger
you.
man.
Exactly.
We're talking about some of our biohacks.
You have to keep us up to date on that whole thing. Next time we see you, you're gonna look like you're 18 because you're dating some young guy, and then we're all gonna be envious and think that's gonna be our next biohack.
It's gonna be out in the sun.
I love it. Dr. Kate's actually blushing. Here go your mast cells.
Oh goodness. Oh, there you go. You are a fast learner.
She is very fast.
I love it. I love it.
Taylor went to medical school.
Did you really? Did you really?
And I also, it's interesting because we talked earlier about like the pharma industry, like crossing over in pharma and beauty, and I work for Pfizer. And so I'm really familiar with the pharma side, but there's so much out there that's now coming from the earth and different things that we're learning about how to maybe go back in time as opposed to continue forward.
I have to ask you like a personal question. Did you go to medical school before or after the relationship where someone was saying that you weren't intelligent? When did that happen?
Oh no, that was way before.
Medical school was way before. And you still didn't know the lesson of how highly intelligent you were, even then. See, like it seems like your path was constantly telling you. And you weren't. That's just by a little 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, and I think going back to the childhood test that you were talking about, I have a lot of issues from childhood. I didn't have a father, so I'm the perfect psychology 101 textbook for someone who's going to fall into a relationship with someone who's critical of them. So we definitely need to take that childhood test. I'm totally fascinated by it.
Yeah.
Because I definitely think that self-esteem well, I know self-esteem is a huge factor in getting into unhealthy relationships.
Yeah.
And so building that from the inside, like your soul mind connection.
And I find I'm very fascinated by like the ACE test and those statistics, because I look at some of the people who inspired me growing up, like Tony Robbins and Oprah and like Wayne Dyer. And like a lot of them they have these orphanage stories and these abuse stories. And you see these people that completely turn the table on that statistic. And like, you know, how demoralizing is it if you are a person with trauma to find this out, that it's almost like an inevitability that you're going to get sick and your life is going to suck, right?
Yeah.
I obviously don't accept that. I also have a ridiculously high like ACE score, and I'm not like, do not prescribe to that. Like I want to prescribe to the Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer route,
you can
right?
you can make anything happen.
I want to know, and I haven't figured it out. What are the factors in that switch? And maybe you can speak to them.
Yeah, I think that would be a very interesting thing to write about, is just talking about how it is that if you know that you potentially, from a statistical perspective, you know, being a child from an abusive household, you have a very much higher likelihood to be in an abusive relationship, either as an abuser or as a victim. And so in looking at how to turn those tables and provide that self-confidence for young people who've lived through that is critical.
I have something to say about that, and I don't want to talk about sad stories, but ideally, one of my clients from years back, she came to me and she was getting a divorce, and she was getting a divorce for her abusive husband. And they were young, and she was crying. And I said, "Why are you crying? This is something that you need to do. I mean, and you need to leave him." And she was like, "No, it's because when he was young and he used to get beat by his father, and this is what he would do. And, you know, I just feel so bad for him." So you're feeling bad for him that he's doing this to you. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I was like crying. I couldn't even believe, like, I didn't know, I was trying to hold it together, but you know, she was so pretty and she was so calm, and she was understanding why he was having this reaction, why he was
It's usually
her.
that understanding that keeps you in a bad situation.
He was abused when he was a child. So
Yeah, we like make excuses for their bad behavior,
right?
Because as women,
how
we're
do you
empathetic.
break that path? I mean, it's just like, do you break a path? Like, for example, you know, Kobe, he was raised, I don't need to put a celebrity as an example, but he was raised, you know, not by his father, but he's an amazing father. So it's like, how do you change a certain path?
Yes, that's the question.
Right.
Like, what are the factors that allow us to not be a statistic and to be like an outlier,
or not to be a victim,
in a positive
or not
way,
to be in a positive way.
Right.
It's the brain-body connection.
Absolutely.
That's
all
literally
goes back
it
to
is.
that.
Back to Biohack Their Beauty. No,
And your brain.
Right. And it's all back
Just
to what you're
biohack
saying, like that
brain.
soul mind connection and trying to figure out how to
But
align
that's
those
what
things.
you brought up is amazing.
I
It's just like a whole other conversation.
I just think that
We'll
like
just be here all day.
Wow.
we have these opportunities, we get specific challenges, we have the opportunity to transform them. If we can, we get that graduation, we get that better life. And if we don't, we just keep repeating it until we do. So
I think that's the importance of us just continuing to talk about it.
Yeah,
and
totally.
to give
Yeah.
other people the tools and just the thought process to say, I can change things if I just align myself with my own mind and not listen to the speak from the outside.
And to not give up, because that journey is difficult, you know, so you can try it and fail and try it and fail and try it and fail. But like every time you fail, you're getting closer to like understanding yourself better
right.
and society and the world and everything else. You just have to keep trying to
pushing,
not,
trying.
you know, and especially if you come from like an abusive household and maybe you like make mistakes with your own kids and you're trying to like not put that on them. I know for me, like having kids was like my biggest mirror to my own action, but not only mine, but my parents. And so it was like trying to change that. And luckily now, like my daughter and I talk a lot. So she'll be like, you know, I feel like you weren't there for me for like this many years. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. I agree with you. I like, you know, validate her feelings. And then we move forward from that, you know? So it's like, I mean, and then I'll have to explain myself, like, you know, why I wasn't there for you the way that you needed me to be there for you. And I feel like the fact that we can just have that conversation allows her to move forward and address it.
Right.
So
So
I
being
feel
a
like-
first-time mom, but there's
Yeah.
no book that tells you how to be a mom. You can read
No.
as many books, but you have to live to really understand, like, through each child. I probably was not there full-time for my firstborn,
Right.
but then I realized what to do with my second, you know, and now, like, my third, it's like easy.
right.
Like, I know exactly. I don't miss a thing. It's like I see the tooth falling off. I'm like, my God, your tooth fell off. And I'm like crying.
Yeah.
And, you know, with my first one, it's like, Mom, what do I do? Like, what do I take him to the dentist?
Yeah.
You know, now it's like, I know what to do. You
It's
know,
the whole
just
thing.
like, right?
Yeah.
It's
beautiful.
funny. It
It's
is
the
funny.
cycle of life.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beauty. It's
It's
all
beauty.
beauty. And we're all like,
Mhm.
I'm so grateful
I
I
love
do
for this
love it.
conversation.
beauty
Thank
from
you
the
guys.
inside out and the outside in.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
Love
having
it.
you guys on.
You
We
guys
should
are
just
awesome.
have girl
Definitely. I
talk.
feel like we should just go have a slumber party. And
Yeah,
hang
Oh
out.
my
that would be
God.
fun, actually.
Thank you for having us.
I know,
wasn't
yes.
gonna
Thank you
be
so
in the
much.
panel, but I'm so thankful. I
Yeah.
love this conversation.
It was
Thankful.
amazing.
Me too,
And
me
it
too.
went in
I'm
so
so
many
happy.
great
Yes.
directions.
No, her
so-
energy like makes me just, I don't know, something about having Maribel like with me, I just feel like more whole.
I feel the same with Gemma.
Aw.
Yeah, so
we're,
I'm glad.
we're
Thank you that
definitely
we
each
all-
other's
She was
energy
completely
magnet.
herself. I felt it. I'm like, I feel like she needed me here because she was like completely
Yeah, it's
who she is, and she's
Yeah.
so smart, and she knows what she's saying all the time. So it gave her that comfort zone to be more like
100%.
That's right. To
Yeah.
be your naked
Yeah,
true
energy.
self.
It's your
Everybody
naked
needs
It's
truth.
a friend.
energy. Yeah.
You know that, right? When you guys
Yeah.
are together, you feed each other off each other's energy.
100%.
Yeah,
You're
it's
like,
so important.
Yeah, and sometimes we just get in conversations here just like this, where
Yeah.
it just all of a sudden we forget that there's cameras and microphones, and we're just having
no,
girl
we're
talk,
the same way.
Yeah.
and we're just
We-
expanding each
Or
other's
all night
ideas
long, and then we're like,
horizons.
say
Yeah.
it for the
Yeah.
camera.
We
Yeah.
leave each other's side and we're like DMing each other, texting each other at night, like till I have to put the phone away because I'm like, okay, Kate.
So it really
That's
is
it
us.
for me.
Same. It is
Yeah.
us. It's us.
It really
Exactly.
is us.
It's exactly.
Like our
it.
husbands
You
are
too.
snoring
I
next to us and we're still
Okay.
talking.
We have to keep
Okay.
we have to keep these conversations going. So please come
Okay.
back and see us.
Yes.
Love you
Yes.
guys.
Well, until next time, then.
Until
Thank you
next
so
time.
much for
Thank
being
you
here.
so much.
Thanks. And we'll put all the
Yay.
links
Yeah. all
to
the
get a
links.
hold of them in the bottom of this video and where you can buy Dr. Kate's supplement if you would like to try it.
And Biohack Your Beauty, the next event. We're going to
Let's-
do one.
Let's do
You
it.
guys are gonna be
Biohack.
part of. I think it's going to be September 19th. Is this evergreen? Or
Yes.
is it
Yes.
evergreen? So,
September 19th.
September
in the
19th.
studio.
okay. Yeah, we're going to do Glendale Tech Week, Biohack Your Beauty. So it's going to be a tech, beauty, and biohacking focus. So
Okay. In
it's
Los
gonna be a
Angeles?
full day. Yeah, at the
Okay,
Americana, in Glendale.
Oh, perfect.
Right
Okay.
in front of Gucci.
We'll be there.
We will be there.
And then we'll all go to Gucci.
Yes, sounds perfect.
I love
Yay.
it. Okay. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
awesome.
Thank you.